Welcome to the webinar. My name is Gabriela Hennigan, and I am the Autism Educational and Behavioural Consultant. I'm the ABA Therapist and Special Education Teacher. And my website is Autism Consulting Online and autismtherapies.eu. You can find me on Facebook, Autism Educational and Behavioural Consulting. Here's my email address and the telephone number. If you wish to connect with me via Skype, here's my Skype and the WhatsApp. So here is some information about me, who I am. So I have the bachelor's degree in English philology and a master's degree in marketing and management, and 23 years of teaching experience. I'm registered with the Teaching Council of Ireland and am GARDA vetted. I developed my passion in special education area past teaching English as a foreign language, post my younger daughter's ASD diagnosis in 2015 when we stayed in the USA. So I'm also a mother of a child with autism who is 6. My aim is to help children and adolescents with autism to reach their fullest potential and to empower parents in the delivery of the effective, evidence-based, parent-led interventions to improve the outcomes of children with autism. My professional experience in the autism field is that since 2017, I've been a founder and a director of the Integrative Therapies Centre for Autism Ireland, practitioner of ABA, filtered sound training, neurodevelopment, rhythmic movement therapy, brain gym, and multisensory therapy. I have worked in the center-based settings with children with autism and related disorders between the ages 2 till 14. I have a BCBA in place who supervises my ABA intervention with clients. Currently, I work as an autism educational and behavioral consultant, and I mainly provide online consultations, courses, and webinars about the evidence-based practices. Prior to that, in 2016 until 2017, I accepted the position as the executive assistant at Autism Research Institute in San Diego, California. And Autism Research Institute is one of the oldest autism research organizations worldwide. My continuous professional development in the area of special education in the years 2015 till 18 is as follows. I did my training with the Kegel Institute, with CARD Center for Autism and Related Disorders, with Relationship Development Intervention, RGA Connect, with Verbal Behavioral Institute as the Registered Behavioral Technician training, with AIT Institute, Auditory Integration to become the Filtered Sound Training Practitioner, with the Juniper Corporation in the USA in relation to the multisensory therapy for children with autism and other developmental delays. Also with the Abledger Institute International, International Educational Kinesiology Foundation, Rhythmic Movement Training International. I also attended a few TACA autism conferences in Costa Mesa in California about to find out more about the biomedical treatment and the latest research in the autism area. Today, I would like to present about the Expanding Your Child's Language. This is part of the online course for autism parents and professionals. The course is called Become Your Own ASD Child's ABA Therapies for Parents. The same course is also for the ABA therapies and for the professionals working in the area of special education. It's called Developmental Naturalistic Behavioral Strategies to Promote Social Communication Development. The course starts on the 16th of March. It's delivered for 7 Mondays. Altogether, it's 161 hours in the period of 7 weeks. In this amount, there are 14 online hours, which are 2 hours on Mondays from 10 till 12 Luxembourg time or 9/11 Irish time. And apart from the 2 hours online of the training, in the step-by-step comprehensive guide in how to deliver a behavioral social communication therapy for a child with ASD or a speech delay, parent or the therapist needs to be committed to work 2 hours daily on self-study and working with a child with autism. So the training that starts on the 16th of March includes 40 videos with presentation of techniques based on the current speech and communication level a child with autism is currently at. So it starts with the pre-verbal stage, with single words, with word combinations, sentences, depending on the child's level of communication and language skills. The course includes the resource pack that every participant needs to fill out before the training, before our online meeting, and also in the course of 1 week when there are different assignments set up in this week time to practice with your child or with a child with autism, if that's like the clinical setting. So the package includes social communication checklist, the goal sheet, self-check sheet, review sheet, daily activity schedule, homework, reflections sheet, exercises, and this is distributed on each before or during each online meeting. Why is this course important for any ASD parent? So, autism services market has a high turnover worldwide of autism therapists. This very often causes great amounts of understood frustration for parents, which are very often being left out without a specialized and timely support for their child. It often takes months, if not longer, to source sufficiently trained ABA therapists who will deliver the intervention. So this is the reason why the ASD parents should consider becoming their own child's therapist, no matter if their child currently has behavioral specialists or speech therapists in place or not. So what are the benefits of the online training for parents in how to become ABA therapists to promote the social communication development for their child with autism? So the research studies show that with training, parents can use the same strategies as specialists and be just the same, if not even more effective. Parents interact with and teach their child during both play and meaningful daily routines, and first of all, they know their children better than everybody else. Parents form special bond with their children, thanks to which they can be successful intervention providers. When parents use intervention strategies rather than specialists, children show better generalization and maintenance of skills, what means that they can apply their learning to new situations and they can learn in their naturalistic environment. The very important thing is that when parents deliver behavioral therapy to increase and promote social communication development in their children with autism and speech delay, so more hours of therapy means better outcomes for ASD children. Parents may be discouraged often and frustrated when their child doesn't respond to typical parenting practices. So learning effective ways to help their child with ASD helps in development of a few areas. So it increases parental feelings of competence, optimism about the child's future, decreases the stress level in the family, gives more time for leisure and recreation in turn, and helps parents in setting higher expectations for their child. So even if the upcoming online step-by-step comprehensive program is delivered for 7 weeks with one online meeting per week, which is on Monday normally, and it's 2 hours long, it requires a parental commitment in the amount of around 23 hours per week as minimum, which is like spread across the whole week with 2 hours 2 hours per day plus the online program. At the beginning of the program, a parent spends more time on studying materials with techniques, videos, filling out many sheets to set themselves and their child for success, such as self-check sheet and social communication checklist, a goal sheet, activity schedule, reflections, homework, activities, resources. Parents prepare for the short at first, but the quality intervention to start with, let's say 5-10 minutes, and build up the time up to the 30 minutes a day during a chosen routine or social sensory activity or any other activity with their child. And then the parent builds the time gradually to 1 hour of the interaction. It can be interspersed interaction and some activities mixed together, like with break, using the teaching moments and teaching opportunities during every day, before, after school, preschool, and some therapy session outside, and then increasing the time gradually to 2 hours and more. So down the line, ASD parent will become more and more confident and will need less time for preparation, as she or he will have more time for helping their child build new and additional skills with full awareness of the methodology behind each strategy. So the 7-week online program, Become Your Own ASD Child's ABA Therapist, is also called the program for ABA for the professionals, called Developmental and Naturalistic Behavioral Strategies to Promote Social Communication Development, or How to Deliver Behavioral Social Communication Therapy for a Child with ASD or Speech Delay. So this program has the following agenda. As you can see here in the slide, there are 7 meetings with 14 sessions online, and How to Expand the Language is actually the session on the meeting 5, which is throughout the whole course, and this is the topic subject of today's webinar. The online program, which is starting on the 16th of March, can be very successful for parents in helping their children develop social communication skills and to use those skills spontaneously. It's important to know that parents stick to the guidance and carry out the gradual steps using the right techniques at the right time. So here's the poster with the promo code, which gives 10% discount with registration by 10th of March. So the promo code is called AC Become ABA Therapist 1. So what are the payment options? So this promo code is for the registration by the 10th of March. After the 10th of March, there's a regular fee for the course that can be purchased through the link from our website, autismconsulting.online, upcoming online events. And this is the course that can be purchased through the Eventbrite. Another option to make payments in weekly installments is via PayPal, which is like €135 per week, and that can happen a week before each Erin's live session, which is scheduled on Mondays for 7 weeks. So how it works is that to enroll in the course, we're getting 10% off and the promo code. Please contact Autism Connect via email, WhatsApp, a Facebook message, give your name, surname, country, and the email address. And then Autism Connect will contact us with your details that you wish to register. So we will send you the activation link via Eventbrite with the promo code, which will give you the 10% off the course fee. And then you need to, it's just that the deadline that you would need to stick to, which is the 10th of March. The online course starts on the 16th of March, Monday, at 10 o'clock Warsaw, Luxembourg time. It lasts for 2 hours. And the online classes are scheduled, as I said before, at the same time. But the parent needs to commit to working every day with their child, because it's going to be quite an intensive course that the parent will need to study the materials, fill out the sheets, plan the interaction with the child, to be aware of how to use the teaching moments and teaching opportunities at home that probably you have done so far, however, maybe not to the full amount that you could focus on, so that the child would have as many teaching learning opportunities as possible. This same applies to a therapist working in the clinical setting, and the therapist can also, of course, avail of the course, but the therapist need to work with a child with autism or speech delay every day, so that the therapist would have plenty of opportunities to carry out the instructions of the program. So today's webinar is about the expanding your ASD child's language. So the goals of the presentations, the evidence-based ways of helping children with autism to overcome challenges with communication, best techniques to expand the language, and the application of effective prompts to expand the language. In this slide, you can see the pyramid, which is divided into 3 sections. The upper section is direct teaching, which is what the ABA is about, discrete trial training. The middle section is communicative temptations, balanced turns, and playful obstruction. And the lowest part, the bottom part of the pyramid, is to model and expand the language, to be animated, imitate your child, and follow your child's lead. So if you can see this arrow like up and down, it means that the parent or the therapist needs to navigate, go up and down the pyramid, depending on the child's motivational level and the emotional state. The rule is that during every interaction that is planned by a parent needs to focus 2/3 of the time on the interactive techniques with the child in order to keep the attention and engagement going. And then when the motivation to engage is high, then the parent uses the DTT techniques, which are 1/3 of the time of the total interaction, in order to avoid frustration. So probably many parents ask questions, what technique should be used at what time, what behaviors to watch, how long to use the technique, when, how often, and when to go up and down the pyramid. So these areas here in the pyramid are covered in details in our 7-week program. Today's webinar is just a part of the lowest part of the pyramid as one of the interactive techniques, which is called Model and Expand the Child's Language, which you can see in the bottom part here of the pyramid. So why do we expand the child's language? So as you know, children with autism face difficulties communicating their thoughts and needs, and they have problems with feelings and with reading the other people's emotions. They struggle with spontaneous use of the language. Discrete child training, DTT, helps your child learn specific language skills and to use them more spontaneously. Make sure that you are familiar with the DTT, with discrete child training steps, and about what prompts to use as you expand your child's language. In relation to the DTT, discrete child training, the program focuses on reinforcement and prompting. So how to choose a prompt? And what is a prompt? So prompt is support, is help, it can be verbal or non-verbal, which is provided, given to a child in order to give a correct response. A correct response is in relation to learning a new skill or revising already existing skills. So how do we choose a prompt? So we need to always choose the least supportive prompts which are necessary to help a child respond correctly. More supportive prompts are best when you teach a new skill and when you try to decrease the child's frustration. Less supportive prompts are used when we need to consider our child's current skill level. So if the child knows the skill, if it's like in terms of the language and communication, then we use less supportive prompts because we want the child to maintain the skill, the language, the communication in the area that the child knows, like maybe manding or tacting, labeling the objects, or combining words into two or into three-word sentences. When the child learns a new language, whether that's a pre-verbal level or combining two words or expanding to make the language more complex, when this is a new skill that we are teaching, then we need to use more supportive prompts. So if the child is learning a new word, we don't ask him what it is, as this will probably not lead to the correct response. Instead, we provide the child with more support by modeling the new word. So for example, if the child doesn't know the word, let's say, light switch. So if we have the light switch, we point to the light switch and ask the child what it is. So the child will probably not answer that that's the light switch. So we need to model this new word. By modeling the new words, we provide the verbal support, and then we repeat in the context the words so that the child would use these words spontaneously. If the child performs a skill most of the time, we provide a less supportive prompt. So it means that when the child performs a skill most of the time, it means that the child knows this skill already. So we practice this skill with a child by maintaining the skill. And then we give a child less support. We wait for a child to say a word which he knows already by holding the item and waiting for the reply. In teaching the new language and expanding the child's existing language, or teaching pre-verbal children how to use first words, or children who already have words, so that they would combine the words into two or three word combinations, or when the child uses multiple sentences, we want the child to expand to use more complex language. We always need to consider the child's motivation. So if the child is highly motivated then he can respond correctly with less supportive prompt. So higher motivation means that the child will try harder to learn a new skill, to expand the language. If the child is not motivated, we need to provide a more supportive prompt. We gradually add support as needed. There is a 3-step rule of prompting from the least to most support. So what are the types of prompts? So when teaching the expressive language, we want to use the least supportive prompt, which is necessary to help the child respond correctly. One of the prompts is called physical guidance, or hand over hand, or a full hand support. This is the most supportive prompt. It's used for teaching more complex non-verbal language and involves your physical engagement. The physical guidance is used if a child doesn't respond to a gesture prompt or verbal model. Another type of prompt is a gestural prompt, or the gesture. It teaches a more complex form of nonverbal language. So the examples are pointing, tapping, signing, some natural gestures which are paired with a spoken word. Another type of prompt is a verbal routine. It's like filling out the blanks in the song, in some expressions, like a meaningful phrase, which is known to a child, like ready, set, go, or some familiar routines that the child knows, and then he fills out the blanks. So he uses the words in the context of the routine. It's helpful for a child who only starts to use verbal language. So with children who are pre-verbal, it's a good, helpful, useful prompt to use those blanks, those filling out blanks and verbal routine ideas. Another type of prompt is called verbal model. When you say a target word or phrase for a child to imitate. For children with some spoken language, a verbal imitation is one way to build new vocabulary and to keep the motivation high. So verbal model is modeling of the words that we want the child to know, or modeling of the phrase we want the child to use when we expand the child's language and make it more complex. We need to pay attention to the correct language level the child is at, and to keep our model clear and distinct. So it's important to pay attention to the correct language level that the child is at, because the rule is to have only one level up. So when we make the language, when we use the language for a child which is too complex, the child might not understand and might be frustrated that it's a difficult thing to understand the parents or somebody's language, which will not help the child improve his own language or expand his own language. On the other hand, if we use the level which is the same that the child is at, so for example, if we use only one word, and the child uses already one word, so it's not challenging enough for a child. So we need to bear in mind that one level up is the best, more effective way of expanding the child's language, and actually any new skills which are taught during the behavioral therapy. The child is required to respond correctly before being reinforced. So it's very important to reinforce the child after a correct response. If the child doesn't imitate your verbal model, then we add more support by using a gesture. And if needed, a physical prompt. If the child imitates your language, we decrease your level of support, what helps him use the language spontaneously. Another type of prompt to expand the child's language is choice. So we use the language on his, so that the child would use the language on his own and be less dependent on the verbal model. The verbal model is what we say to a child, what we model verbally to a child. So we want the child to make choices more independently, less dependent on us, on our prompt. So a choice prompt is, for example, give him two things to choose from, an item which he wants and the item which he doesn't want. The choice is used to help him learn the difference between words. So say the preferred item first. Do you want a juice or a spoon? So this is a choice of two things, what he wants, juice or spoon. If he repeats the second word, like spoon, we give it to him. It often happens that children have echolalia and they repeat the second word. What doesn't mean necessarily that they really want the second word like spoon in this case. So we need to then direct the child and say, well, you said spoon, but you want a juice. So this is your juice. Oh, you don't want the juice. And then you need to carry on the conversation with maybe mixing the sequence of these two words to choose from, so that the child would learn the fact that the communication is meaningful and that he needs to be aware of what he wants, really, if that's one item or the other, and not only by repeating with echolalia what he has heard. This strategy helps the child learn that he has to attend to the entire message to get what he wants, rather than just repeat what he hears, as I said before. So we provide a verbal model for a child to imitate if he says the name of the item he doesn't want. Another type of prompt is called closed procedure. It's like filling in the blanks, used by more verbal children who struggle to find the right word. The closed procedure is used to build vocabulary, and it works best if it's paired with gestures or visuals or verbal cues. Another type of prompt is question. Direct questions are used to help your child communicate about many different aspects of one item or activity. So if we want the child to learn the words in the context related to tickle, we ask questions like, where do you want tickles? And we want the child to say in the belly or on the neck or on the leg, because we want the child to expand the language which is related to the context. And then we reinforce every correct response. When the child is pre-verbal, we want the child to use a single word to name the object, or in this case, a part of the body. It's like about tickling, and then we reward word approximations. So word approximation is not the fully correctly said word, but it's something that's like the first syllable. So for example, belly is be, or arm, a, or head, he. So something that is similar but we always need to make sure that we reward a child with making an effort to use the word approximation. So with regards to the other questions, like what, where, or who, those questions are easier to answer than the questions why, how, and when. Children with autism have problems with answering questions, and these open questions, what, where, and who, are normally easier because we prompt and then we give the answer. So that's normally the question about the noun as the subject of the sentence. We avoid yes and no questions because these are closed questions and they don't build vocabulary or a two-way interaction. We need to keep in mind that when we work on purpose as parents or therapists to expand our child's language, specifically to promote social communication development, this is the two-way street, two-way interaction. So we need to carefully, if we are in the teaching moment, we are using the teaching opportunity with a child at home or in the clinical setting, so we on purpose build opportunities to promote this two-way interaction. So having a question yes or no would be contradicting to opening a child because the answer is short, yes or no. Another prompt is time delay. This is a least supportive prompt. Waiting with an expectant look to let your child know that she needs to respond in some way. The time delay, 5 seconds or 10 seconds, helps the child increase the complexity of his language without support. So we wait first for a child to initiate communication with us. So for example, if he says ball, we wait for the child to say, I want ball. And we withhold the ball, keep the ball on in our hand, hold the ball like close to the eyes. If you also want to promote the eye contact, we want the child to look at us when he requests the ball. So if the child doesn't properly request the object within 5-10 seconds, I think 10 seconds maximum, although some say that 5 seconds is more preferred time delay, because if it's something like 10 seconds, the motivation can be gone. If it's too long, wait for a child to respond. So then we can add a verbal prompt, like what do you want, or tell me what you want, and then you model the sentence, I want the ball please. This is in terms or when the child's level of speech and communication is one word, for example, ball. So we want them to say, I want the ball please, the sentence. If the child already knows the how to say spontaneously, I want the ball, please. So then we expand the child's language, adding the adjectives and descriptors of this object that the child requests. So we want to say, we want the spiky ball, we want the red spiky ball, or we want the ball from the floor. So basically adding more complex language so that the child would have this as a model and as a prompt, and then repeat. We change prompts over time. It's very important that we need to bear out that our goal is to always work towards spontaneous skill use. So we want the child to use the skill spontaneously. Doesn't matter what kind of the skill it is. In this context, the part of today's webinar is about expanding your child's language. That's why we are specifically talking about the communication and language skills. So we need to keep in mind that we want the child to use the skills, this new language, spontaneously. That's our goal. We choose the least supportive prompts to help our child succeed. If we always prompt with the greatest support, then the child will become prompt dependent and will not have a chance to learn to use the skill spontaneously. So it's called fading of the prompts, that the therapists and parents who work as therapists with their child at home, they need to have in mind that we fade prompts. So we need to give the prompts less and less down the line when the child learns to use the specific words or sentences that we want the child to use, because it happens very often that children with autism are prompt dependent. So they are waiting for prompting and they are waiting for the reinforcement instead of being used to trying to work out the thing themselves by the spontaneous use of the language. So to expand the spontaneous language of a child, we need to remember to start with the least supportive prompts which are needed to help him respond correctly. So for example, the child sees the spillage on the floor and mother says to a child, "Oh no, what happened? Look, what happened?" So we have the animated voice and the gesture, what happened, like you making the gesture with hands, and then the child looks at this spilled milk or juice on the floor, and then the mother we want actually the child to say, "Oh, the floor is dirty," or "Let's clean the floor." This is what we would like the child to say. It would be perfect if the child said the spontaneous language like that, use the spontaneous language. But if the child doesn't say, then we prompt the child more. So, "Oh, look, what happened? The floor is dirty." And then what should we do? What should we do now? And then we wait 5 seconds. We should clean the floor. So where's the mop? Where's the bucket? So by saying in this context, "What happened? Look, what happened? Oh no." So this is the example how we give the least supportive prompt, which means we are just making a comment that something happened on the floor and we want the child to react. If we see that the child doesn't react in the way that the floor is dirty, let's clean, so then we add additionally more and more prompts. The most supportive prompt would be even to get the child to clean the floor, let's say, or you clean the floor together with a child, that you even use full physical prompt. That this is when the child doesn't know, for example, how to mop the floor or wipe the floor with the baby wipe. So what are the tips for expanding the child's language? The child's language can be used in expanding the child's language can be used in any moment at home with a child. Parents need to realize that there are many excellent, wonderful teaching opportunities. I know that it can be sometimes kind of a challenging for a parent when the schedule is tight and there are loads of things to do at home, and it's quicker to do things on your own, like cleaning or doing some chores or doing the laundry or But these are the best times because a child learns social communication in the moment. And if this is paired with the parent who has a special bond with the child, and the movement, the activity is combined, is paired with the verbal instruction and with gesture and with the context, this is how the child learns most effectively, as compared to only using the skills with expanding the language in the clinical setting, like during the therapy at the table. So there are many teaching opportunities for a parent to use with a child. It's just a matter of slowing down a little and accepting, for example, that sometimes it can be a little more messy in the kitchen because you expand the language when the child wants to help you with cooking or washing the dishes or loading, offloading the dishwasher or fridge, freezer. But then it's an excellent opportunity for a child to practice expanding the language from pre-verbal to children who use multiple sentences, and we want those children to develop more complex language. So, for example, when we play with toys, what are the tips? So we give a child a choice how he wants to play with the toy, and we prompt him his preference. So we ask, do you want to squish the ball or to roll the ball? So we teach the word squish and the roll in this context by giving the choice, and then we use the words, we model the words, the verbs, because we want the child to use squish the ball or roll the ball. We prompt the child to ask for desired toys and activities during play, like what do you want, or where should I tickle you? And then when the child doesn't reply straight away, we need to wait 5 seconds. It's like the time delay. Then we can repeat the same question. What do you want? And where should I tickle you? Because we want to give the time, the child some time, a few seconds time to process the question, to know how to answer. But when the child doesn't answer, or for example, answer incorrectly, or repeats, then we just model the correct answer. And we want the child to repeat, and we practice this in the context, like for example, the next day, we use those desired toys and activities so that it would be the repeated situation, so that the child would be exposed to practicing this answer, like what do you want, or where should I tickle you? If the child enjoys playing in a particular order, then we prompt him to tell you where to put each piece and what to do next. So for example, put block B next to the block A, or a red block on top, or the SpongeBob next to Peppa Pig. So then we can add some prepositional phrases aiming to expand the child's language. We can use the prepositions under, above, next to, in front, on top, on the bottom, in the drawer, inside, out, in, depending on the current stage of the child's level of communication and language. If the child, so for example, if the child likes art activities, and we know that the child is highly motivated to use some arts and crafts and art supplies, then we can bring all the art supplies, but keep an essential piece hidden on purpose. So for example, we bring paper, but not crayons or paints. because we want the child to request for the missing piece. Similarly, we can bring a thing, an item in a closed container with the tightly closed lid, and we want the child to open the container, but he can't open as it's tightly closed. So we want the child to request that he wants help, or that he gives us the instruction, the request to open the container for him. Another idea or another excellent opportunity to use the teaching moments with a child to expand his language is during mealtime. So we give the child food in a container that he can open, like similarly to these missing items that the child needs to take out, like when we analyze the arts activity. And then we prompt the child to request correctly. So, for example, we can put some Cheerios in the closed jar. We want him to eat, right? And he needs to do something with these Cheerios to open the box. So he needs to request. Or we can put just 3 or 4 small pieces of Cheerios in the bowl. And we know that the child loves Cheerios. So we want the child again to request for more. And then, depending whether the child is pre-verbal or using more verbal or is more verbal, then we gradually expand on the child's language using the language level, which is one level higher than the child's current skill level. In relation to mealtime, we can also pour only a bit of drink that the child likes and prompt him to communicate that he wants more, or we can give him a drink, some drink that he doesn't like, because we want him to use the negative sentences that I don't want, I don't like. There are many techniques that on purpose we give a child the thing that he doesn't want, or we make a mistake. For example, like putting the things in the wrong way, like in terms of the activities with dressing, like we put the socks on hands or pants, trousers on the child's arms or even on the dolly's arm, and then we want the child to respond, like, where do the socks go? We want the child to pay attention and fix us. If the child has a dressing routine in a particular order, then we can change this routine and prompt him to tell us how he wants the routine. With our aim in mind to expand the child's language during these interactions with the child on a daily basis in many different settings, but at home during different routines and activities, us as parents or the therapists, we can on purpose make some mistakes, be some funny, animated, be silly Billy, so that the child would fix us, so that the child would say to us, Mommy, this is not the way how it works, let's do the different way, the other way. Another great opportunity where we can expand the child's language is during the bath time. So we can splash a child with water, and if he likes it, and then we can use a playful obstruction to stop him and to get him to communicate that he wants more or wants to get out of the tub of the bath. So the playful obstruction, which is mentioned here in this example of the activities during the bath time, the playful obstruction is one of the interactive strategies which we use on purpose to teach social communication development. And if you remember, at the beginning of this webinar, I presented the pyramid with techniques. So this playful obstruction is actually on the bottom of the pyramid, which, along with other techniques, is used on purpose to motivate the child to interact with us, either by using the language or imitation or play skills or different skills, to target different skills. So that's the technique that is going to be expanded on in details during the 7-week course, which is starting in mid-March. So the research studies published in peer-reviewed journals about the importance of intensive, comprehensive intervention and parent-led interventions for children with autism. So there are many research studies that have been published in the peer-reviewed journals through the randomized controlled trials and systemic studies, which were carried out through many research centers across the globe about the intensity of the intervention for children with autism, how it impacts, how it improves the general outcomes for children. The earlier the better, the more intensive the better, the more comprehensive the better. And when parents are involved in the intervention, the results are also much better, because children can learn to generalize the new skills, they can maintain those skills, and it's happening during the naturalistic environment with a parent. And then these are more long-lasting skills. And on the other hand, also the parents who are obviously and understandably frustrated when the child doesn't respond to typical parenting practices, a parent feels more empowered and more in control about the child's future, about setting higher expectations for the child. So it's very important that the parents of children with autism should carry on the techniques at home, which are naturalistic behavioral strategies that are used during play with a child. Apart from the techniques mentioned here, which are to expand the child's language, how we use different prompts, and how we keep in mind the child's motivation level, emotional state, and how we also bear in mind that we need to change the prompts when we teach a language to a child, because we want the child to use this skill spontaneously. There are different other techniques like playful obstruction, which were mentioned earlier, about balance turns, about the following the child's lead, about imitation, imitating the child, about many other different techniques that are interactive to promote back and forth communication, back and forth engagement. As we know, the children with autism lack this social communication with peers, and they need to be stimulated in the house with adults, so that they would finally be prepared to be more independent in communication, in interaction with peers outside the home setting. So do you have questions and answers? I think now that's the time for questions and answers. I can't see any questions at the moment. I don't know if I am looking at the panel correctly now. All right, I think I can see some question first here. What about a child who prefers physical gestures, pointing, tapping, to actual communication? Okay, so if the child, it looks that the child is pre-verbal. If he prefers the gestures, gestural prompts, and he uses gestures and then communicates verbally. So in this case, what I would do, I would model a word combined with the gestural prompt. So I would do the modeling verbal prompt and the gestural prompt, and then I would look out for the word approximation, so that the child could use the word verbally to expand the child's language level. I got some question about the stem cells therapy, but I don't specialize in stem cell therapy. I don't have any information that I could share with you about that. Okay, another question here it is, my kid is pointing anywhere where I show him tree with gesture. What problem is he facing? So my kid is pointing anywhere where I show him the tree with gesture. Okay, so if you show him a tree with gesture and he's pointing anywhere, so I think he needs to learn pointing on the correct item, on the correct object. So it means that you need to start with full physical prompt by taking his hand and pointing with him to the objects, like the tree, for example, or some other objects, and then name those objects with him. In this way, you model the word for him so that he would use. So in this case, he is not, he doesn't, he needs to be more, needs to have more exercises, practice with pointing to correct objects and naming those objects, or pointing if he doesn't use the words. Now let me see some other questions. Okay, we have another question here. My son is 8 years old and he is little more than a need-based verbal. How do I help him to do a conversation with me? He just answer in 1 or 2 sentences, like, what did you do in school today? Okay, so it means that the child is verbal, he can communicate if he wants. If he communicates at the moment about school, it's because he feels more confident with the use of words connected to school. So it is important to practice his communication with different settings. So I don't know if your son uses 2 words, 3 words, or the whole sentence when he talks about school, or does he say, how was school, and he says good, or if he uses 1 to 2 sentences about school. So I would do lots of activities with him with different themes to use the language for him. So objects at home, about his hobbies, about his favorite, maybe the movies, or favorite books, or favorite YouTube videos if he watches, or any favorite things. And it's important to remember that when you talk with him, with a child, about the things that are his highly interested in, preferred activities, then he will be more motivated to learn new words, to repeat the words, to expand the language. So to expand the language, and so that you would use in different settings, not only about school, you need to start with highly preferred activities and toys for him. And then when, for example, he likes talking about robots, right? So then you increase his language by the action words that the robot makes. And then when he replies to you correctly, you need to reinforce him for an attempt first that he communicates in a different context rather than the school, and then to reinforce and then to expand on his language. So add additional things related to the context about these robots or any other highly preferred item. Let's see, we have some other questions. I've seen here, click on unassigned questions. Okay, so I think we have another question. But uses single months during a structured setting, but not in natural environment. How can I help? Okay, so the child uses single months during a structured setting, but not in natural environment. Okay, so structured setting, manding. This would look like the structured ABA therapy when the child uses months, so requests, the objects. And then that's the activity which is predictable for a child. The child is reinforced, rewarded for the correct response. And the child doesn't use those months in a naturalistic environment. Okay, so there needs to be more practice in the naturalistic environment, which is a parent or the therapist working in the community setting, but at home first, to start with home during the social routines and daily routines. So how we want the child to use more months, requests. We look again at the high motivation of the child. So first we look where the child is looking, what toys, activities the child selects. So when he selects some activities, let's say in the bathroom, he selects the soap, or he selects the bathing toys, but he doesn't demand for them, he doesn't request them. So then we hold those preferred items which he selected. He did the reinforcement selection himself. So it means that these are highly preferred things, so he will want to mount the request for them. So we need to model the response to him, and then once he answers, we need to give it to him immediately, so that he would know that once he mounts requests properly, he gets the natural reward as a naturalistic access to the item he wants. We need to practice a lot. We need to model a lot of events like this, a lot of probing, not only in the structured setting, but in the naturalistic environment, so that the child will generalize the skill, that he can mount for the same object, not only at the table, but in the bathroom, in the library, in the kitchen. So the parent needs to be involved in teaching the child to generalize how to mount, request the objects. The more practice, the better outcomes. Okay, any more questions? I don't seem to see the whole question. I only see Like he says, I wrote numbers, but I don't see the whole question. I don't know, don't see any questions. Looks like one is unfinished. Like he says, I wrote numbers, so I don't know what is the other part, the first part of this question. If you can type again, please. My child has a lot of echolalia. Yes, okay. So when the child has a lot of echolalia, it is actually can be beneficial to model his answers as teaching him a correct response by using this echolalia to his benefit. So if you ask him, do you want juice or crackers? And he will repeat the same, do you want juice or crackers? So then you need to model the correct response. So give him this verbal prompt immediately, not allowing him to answer. So do you want crackers or juice? And you say, I want juice, right? So he will repeat, I want juice. And then you give him, here's your juice straight away. Immediately give him juice. If he doesn't want juice but crackers, so then you need to also model, oh, you don't want juice, you want crackers, so say, I want crackers. So it needs to be by lots of repetitions so that she would respond correctly. If it happens that the child only repeats the last word, do you want juice or crackers? And he says crackers. Then you give him crackers. If he really wants these crackers, it's super. You then reinforce him. Here you go. You said crackers. Here are your crackers. Eat crackers. If he wants juice, but he says crackers because he has an echolalia, he uses only the last word. You say, no, you don't want crackers, so you want juice. So you say, I want the juice. And then you need to, I think, practice a lot with giving him different combinations with choice of two. And then you need to just repeat and give him maybe coffee and phone. And you say, do you want coffee or phone? And he says phone, because as the echolalia is the last word. And then give him phone and then reward him for the good choice he made because he said phone. But if you say, do you want coffee? And he says coffee, and give him the coffee, and he like looks at you like this and say, oh, you said coffee, but you don't want coffee. I like coffee. You want juice, you like juice. So you say, I want juice, not coffee. And then it's the matter of repeating many times the same so that she would start paying attention to the whole sentence which is being said. I see some part of the question. 1 second. My daughter is 11 years old. Her speech is demand-based, but she speaks very fast. In the process, I can't see very fast. And this pane is actually quite small. I don't know how to make it bigger. In the process, speech. How to reduce the speed of child's speech. My daughter has demand-based speech and speaks very fast, making it difficult for us to understand what she wants. Okay. How to reduce the speed of child's speech. Okay. Maybe singing would be good. Children like singing songs and they learn, expand the language in this way. If the song has some nice intonation and it's at a slower pace. And then I think that if this is a verbal child, she speaks a lot, very fast. So It's just reinforcing her speaking slower, giving her reinforcements when she speaks slowly and carefully. So, because you don't understand what she wants when she speaks fast, so then just say to her, speak slowly. When you speak slowly, I will give you what you want, and then what she wants, you know, if she likes her favorite YouTube video, for example, and you sit with her, and then you need to do a few interactions like that with her, so that she would understand that when she speaks slowly, you can understand her more, and then she will be rewarded naturally, that she gets something what she requests, or that you know that something is what she is motivated by. So basically, if she speaks quickly, then you say, I don't understand you, speak slowly, and then model a lot of times how to speak slowly. And I think you need to probably go to speech therapy also, so that they would have their techniques with speech therapy. Will the presentation be shared, especially the resources, web links mentioned towards the end? Yes, the presentation will be shared by the Autism Connect. I think it will be shared on Monday. The same also with the resources and web links about the research studies. How to create curiosity in the children. Okay, so it's preference assessment. How we do that? It is we look where the child, okay, we want to do the interaction with the child, right? We want to teach a child new skill, like the curiosity, right? So we need to use the things which are highly motivating for a child. How we use the highly motivating things for the child? So we need to see these preferences, what the preferences the child has. Is this the new toy? Is this the new activity? Is it the shaving foam? Is it the sensory thing? Is it something what's stimulating the other senses, like vision or olfactory sense, or the children have sensory needs, right, with autism in the vast majority. So when we see the child liking some item, it can be even not a toy, it can be even like kind of the non-stick that has nearly no purpose, right? But it can be motivating for a child with autism. So we see what the child is interested in, even like by looking at this thing or holding the item for a few seconds. And then we collect these things, and then we sit with the child at the table, and then we give him the things that he likes playing with. So this thing that he or she chose is his reinforcement, that he has access to these things when he does the thing. Now with curiosity, right? So we are animating when we read stories with a child, when we perform actions, play the dollhouse, play the pet shop. So we need to be very animating and modeling the activities and have the theatrical, engaging style to make loads of expressions, facial expressions and voice and the gestures combined with high arousal, high impact, then so that this curiosity would be shared with the child. and we need to make how like loads of animated behaviors in front of the child, and we need to describe the item. For example, if that's a new toy, new doll with some nice clothes, so we need to give it loads of tremendous interest, engagement, and good vibes ourselves as parents and therapists, so that the child would imitate this emotion with us. So curiosity, how to play with it. So it needs to be like, you know, presented in a very amusing, entertaining way. How to improve reading language. Okay, so reading can be combined with pictures. So for example, if the child is verbal, like minimally verbal, or verbal, we want to expand the language, we have the labels of the words, like names of the words, and then we practice with a child. The cow eats grass. So the child can combine the cards together in the sequence, like in this case, cow, the picture of the cow eats, the picture of eats, grass, the picture of grass, and then we focus on the words, on the etiquette of the words, and then we combine that together. We practice that so that the child would have this cause and effect, would see this cause and effect dependence. How else do we improve reading language? So I think we could play first with symbols, then we change symbols into the words and into the sentences. The child needs to have the working memory to remember the sequences of sentence. So the parts of the brain responsible for that are the left hemisphere, that the child remembers the cause, the sequence of things like with the speech development, and then it's analogically with reading. What else? I can see that I don't see actually anymore. Oh, I think I can see the last question here. How to teach the child to express her feelings like hunger, thirst, hurt, tired, bored, angry, right? Emotions. Okay, so we do that with cards, with social stories, with presenting, modeling the emotions, with activities like, for example, the child, that the contextual situation, and we repeat that. We model ourselves as parents, like that I am hungry, I didn't eat, or I see the sandwich, I am hungry, and then loads of modeling. The same with thirst. I'm thirsty, I want to drink. When it comes to hurt, so for example, if the child cannot express that the child has some pain in the body, it happens often with the pre-verbal children or even children with the single words. We just can do the visual etiquette for a child to show which part of the body is sore. Like for example, if you ask a child, do you have a headache? And he says, do you have a headache? Or do you have a stomach ache? And he says stomach ache. So it's echolalia, you actually don't know what's wrong. So then draw a boy on the piece of paper and then ask him, where is it, Awi? Or what is wrong with the boy's what is wrong, what part of body is hurting. Maybe in this case, the child in this will be easier, will show you on the picture where there is an owie part of the body, for example. But this is at least first, like immediate reply that you can get when you see that the child is not feeling well, and then you need to know what is wrong, what part of body is not okay suddenly, right? Now, with regards to being tired, bored, and angry, so these are the social skills and self-management that children learn, the school attending children, and they have different techniques like the reward charts and social stories and modeling, all these evidence-based practices that promote self-management, self-regulation. So I can see that these are all the questions. I can't see any other questions. So I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for your attention, and if you have any questions, you can feel free to contact me, to email me, or you can contact the Autism Connect if you would like to have more thorough step-by-step comprehensive program how to promote social communication development in your child with autism and expand social communication. Thank you very much.